they'll never admit it. But deep down, many married men look at the single ones with a quiet ache in their chest. Not because they want more women, not because they want wild nights or freedom without consequence, but because the single man still has something they've lost: possibility. Nietzsche once said, "It is not a lack of love, but a lack of friendship that makes unhappy marriages." But what he meant runs even deeper. He saw marriage not as a sacred bond, but as a mirror, one that eventually forces a man to see how much of himself he has given away just to keep peace, comfort, and routine alive. In his youth, a man believes marriage will complete him. He imagines it will give meaning to his chaos, purpose to his ambition, and calm to his loneliness. But as years pass, he realizes something strange. The peace he wanted begins to feel like a prison. The comfort he sought becomes chains. And when he looks at the single man, walking alone, uncertain but alive, he feels a flicker of jealousy. Because that man still chooses his path each morning, while he must repeat his. You can see it in their eyes, that haunted stillness. The man who once chased dreams now chases stability. He has a family, a home, a schedule, everything he thought would make him whole. Yet inside, a small voice whispers, "What happened to me?" That voice grows louder when he sees another man who still lives dangerously, who doesn't need permission to exist as he is. That man reminds him of who he used to be before life tamed him. Nietzsche believed marriage, like most institutions, was society's clever way to control man's spirit, to turn his wildness into utility. A single man still belongs to himself. He still wrestles with his own chaos. He still dreams recklessly. But a married man often learns to suppress that chaos for the sake of peace. And in doing so, he suppresses his essence. That's the dark irony. The thing most men envy isn't youth, beauty, or even freedom. It's the chance to begin again, to wake up one day without obligations, without expectations, and feel life's raw uncertainty return. Because deep down, every married man remembers that feeling. He remembers when life still felt like a question, not an answer, and he knows he'll never feel that way again, not while wearing the invisible crown of comfort. This is where Nietzsche begins his brutal truth, that the modern man calls his cage love and builds it with his own hands. And when he finally realizes it, it's too late. Nietzsche once warned, "When you marry, you are promising to chain your future to one fate." He wasn't attacking love. He was exposing what it does to a man's freedom. Because love, when institutionalized, becomes obedience disguised as virtue. Every man begins his marriage thinking he will remain himself. He swears he'll stay bold, curious, unpredictable. But little by little, the world demands compromise. He stops doing what he loves, not because he wants to, but because peace becomes more valuable than truth. He learns that silence keeps the house calm, that ambition can threaten stability, and that his individuality must be softened so the relationship can work. And that's where the slow death begins. The single man walks through life with uncertainty as his companion. He's not sure what tomorrow brings, and that's exactly why he's alive. The married man, meanwhile, wakes up knowing exactly what tomorrow will look like. The same breakfast, the same conversations, the same gentle decay of passion hidden under routine. Nietzsche saw this repetition as spiritual suicide. He believed that freedom is not luxury, it is the essence of man. A man without the freedom to say no to life's expectations is no longer living, he is performing. Marriage, in its modern form, often turns performance into identity. He becomes the husband, the provider, the predictable constant. And beneath the surface, something primal begins to rot. His will to power, his drive to become. He starts to envy not the single man's pleasure, but his unpredictability, his ability to change his mind, to make mistakes, to disappear and reinvent himself without explanation. For a married man, even his thoughts begin to feel monitored. He can't explore the depths of who he might be, because he's already become who he's supposed to be. Nietzsche saw this as the tragedy of civilization, that man trades danger for comfort, greatness for approval, and adventure for predictability. And he does it with a smile, thinking he's matured, when in truth, he's been domesticated. Freedom doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and only the single man can still hear it. Because the married one drowned it out long ago, in the name of love, peace, and responsibility. The death of freedom is rarely dramatic. It happens quietly, through small choices that feel noble at the time, until one day you realize you no longer belong to yourself. And when that realization comes, it's too late to unlearn obedience. That's when envy begins to bloom. It's a strange kind of envy, the kind a man can't confess, even to himself, because he's not jealous of another man's possessions or his women or his youth. He's jealous of his uncertainty, of the fact that his life still has blank pages left to write. Nietzsche understood this contradiction well. He wrote that man is not designed for peace, but for struggle and creation. The single man still fights with his own chaos. He's restless, he doubts, he experiments. But the married man, his chaos is contained. He no longer wrestles with the unknown. He manages it. He plans, he schedules, he fulfills roles. And so, while society praises him for being stable, his soul quietly mourns the death of his spontaneity. Every time he sees a single man walking alone, part of him flares with curiosity. What does his life feel like? Does he wake up with that electric feeling of possibility? Does he ever just disappear for a day without explanation? That's what envy sounds like in the mature man's heart. A whisper that says, he still can. Nietzsche called this resentment a deep, hidden bitterness that grows when someone can't live the way they secretly desire. So he tells himself stories. He calls the single man lonely, irresponsible, lost. It's a defense mechanism because admitting the truth would hurt too much. That truth being, he traded adventure for safety. And now, when he looks at the free man, he sees everything he buried to become respectable. But envy is not evil in Nietzsche's eyes. It's revealing. It shows us what we've denied ourselves. When a man envies another's freedom, it's not the other he resents. It's his own cowardice. Because deep down, he knows there was a moment when he could have chosen differently. He could have walked away, risked being alone, faced the chaos. But he chose comfort, and comfort never forgives the dreamer. That's why Nietzsche warned that modern marriage often produces two actors instead of two souls. They play harmony while their spirits scream in silence. And the envy grows not because they lack love, but because they lack the space to be. When a married man sees a single one, he's not seeing another life. He's seeing a mirror of the man he could have been. And every glance at that mirror is a reminder that freedom, once lost, is almost impossible to regain. That's the cruelty of envy. It's not about what you want. It's about what you once had, and can never reclaim. Nietzsche once described a terrifying vision of the future, a world not ruled by tyrants, but by comfort. He called its citizens the last men. They are harmless, predictable, and endlessly satisfied with mediocrity. They no longer risk, they no longer strive, and they no longer burn with the will to become more. And among them stands the married man, the perfect example of what Nietzsche feared, the man who has tamed himself. He is no longer dangerous, not because he lacks strength, but because he has surrendered his hunger. Society has rewarded him for being calm, reliable, responsible. He's not meant to break rules anymore. He's meant to follow them. His wildness has been converted into duty, his instincts refined into manners. and slowly he becomes what Nietzsche called domesticated man, the one who mistakes contentment for meaning. When a man marries, he often believes he's rising into maturity. In truth, he's often descending, from creator to caretaker, from explorer to provider. He begins to orbit a smaller world, bills, birthdays, expectations. His days are accounted for, his desires filtered through what is appropriate. Even his ambitions must now justify themselves through family utility. He no longer asks, "Who am I becoming?" He asks, "What would they think if I tried?" Nietzsche saw this as a spiritual neutering, the breaking of man's creative spirit under the pressure of conformity. And the tragedy is, it doesn't happen violently. It happens with smiles, promises, and approval. A society that fears dangerous men doesn't destroy them. It gives them reasons to be good. It tells them that rebellion is immaturity, that ambition is selfishness, that solitude is failure. And over time, they start to believe it. So when a married man looks at a single one, unanchored, uncertain, but alive, a part of him is quietly enraged. Not because he despises that man, but because he recognizes the ghost of his former self, the self that was once willing to risk ridicule, to walk alone, to defy the safe path. Now that man has become a shadow, locked in repetition, haunted by the idea that his best days are already behind him. Nietzsche believed that envy like this was not mere emotion. It was proof of the soul's decay. When you envy the free, it means you have forgotten how to be free. The modern man envies the single one, not because he wants his solitude, but because he's lost the ability to handle it. His spirit has been domesticated. And domesticated beings crave captivity when freedom appears frightening. They convince themselves they chose the cage. But Nietzsche also warned that this comfort cannot last forever. When man suppresses his chaos too long, it begins to leak out in strange ways. Resentment, midlife crisis, secret addictions, or quiet nihilism. He begins to despise the very life he built to protect himself. He becomes cynical toward the young, critical of the bold, jealous of the free. And so the cycle repeats, generation after generation of men taught to fear the discomfort that could have made them extraordinary. This is Nietzsche's prophecy. Not that man would be destroyed by war or famine, but by the triumph of safety. He saw that the ultimate prison would not have bars. It would have comfort, routine, and approval. A world where every man smiles, but no man burns. Where risk is replaced by routine. Where the hunter has become the house pet. And when the married man feels that invisible envy rise within him, it's the last flicker of something sacred, the instinct that refuses to die, the part of him that still wants to build, to conquer, to stand alone and face the abyss. That flicker is what Nietzsche called the will to power, the raw energy of life that demands expression. But the question is, what will he do with it? Will he smother it with comfort, or will he dare to remember who he was before he traded his chaos for peace? Because in the end, envy is not punishment. It's a warning, a message from the soul that says, you are living too safely, and safety, as Nietzsche taught, is the slowest path to death. The last man smiles, but his heart is already gone, and deep down, the married man knows it. The clock is ticking. Nietzsche never hated marriage. He hated what it did to men who were not strong enough to remain themselves inside it. Because to him, the problem was never love. It was dependence. The tragedy wasn't that men got married, it was that they forgot how to be alone. He believed that the highest form of love could only exist between two whole individuals, not two halves seeking completion. But modern marriage, he argued, had turned into a spiritual merger, a place where individuality is sacrificed for the illusion of unity. And once a man trades his solitude for security, he begins to fade. Not all at once, but piece by piece, until he can't tell where his desires end and his obligations begin. That's why Nietzsche said, it is the most dangerous experiment of all, to live together. Because love tests the very boundaries of the self. If you enter it weak, it consumes you. If you enter it strong, it refines you. The difference between the two determines whether marriage becomes a partnership or a slow death. The married man who secretly envies the single one isn't broken, he's awakening. That envy is the echo of his own soul reminding him, you have forgotten yourself. It's not about leaving anyone, abandoning love, or glorifying loneliness. It's about remembering that the self, your own becoming, must come first. Because when a man loses his center, he can't love authentically. He can only cling. Nietzsche's idea of liberation was never about escaping responsibility. It was about transforming it, about turning necessity into choice. A man who has mastered solitude can enter love freely, without losing his edge. He doesn't need his partner to fill him. He brings fullness into the relationship. He doesn't demand peace. He brings strength. And that strength is magnetic. It revives the soul of love itself. The truth is, the single man and the married man are not enemies. They are reflections of the same struggle. Freedom versus belonging, chaos versus order, self versus surrender. But the highest man, Nietzsche said, learns to unite these opposites within himself. He can love deeply without being tamed. He can belong without becoming property. He can commit without dissolving. That's the true marriage Nietzsche envisioned. The union of two free spirits, not two prisoners who share a cell politely. The envy, then, becomes a teacher. It asks every man, have you betrayed your potential for the sake of comfort? And if so, what would it take to return to your own path? Not as a husband, not as a bachelor, but as a man reborn. Nietzsche's final message to the modern man is not despair, but defiance. To stand back up no matter how domesticated you've become, to reclaim your time, your thoughts, your creative will. To be alone again, not lonely, but powerful in your solitude. Because when a man learns to be alone without fear, he becomes unbreakable. And only then can he love from strength, not from need. The married man who rediscovers his inner wildness does not need to envy the single one anymore. He becomes something greater than both, a man who is whole, whether held or free. That is Nietzsche's liberation, to choose yourself completely and then choose love as an act of strength, not surrender. So remember this, the world will always tell you that peace means safety, but Nietzsche knew the truth, peace means mastery. And the man who masters himself can never truly lose his freedom. If this spoke to you, if it made you think, reflect, or feel that quiet ache of truth deep in your chest, then take a moment right now to subscribe, because more men need to hear what the world keeps silent, and together we'll keep waking them up, one truth at a time.